to Something for the Turbo, the new weekly podcast brought to you by Unfound, the global platform for the travel-loving cyclist.
Welcome to the show. We've got an absolute cracker for you today. But before we kick on, just a little reminder that please do subscribe if you are enjoying the podcast, and make sure you spread the word as well. We'd really appreciate that. Tell all your cycling friends. The more people we can get listening, the better. And also, if you haven't been on the hub yet or seen the Unfound website, go on there and check it out and register. It's www.unfound.cc, www.unfound.cc. You'll see rides from around the world. And if you register and join the community, you can join cyclists from all around the world, sharing rides, photos, stories, and a lot more. We look forward to seeing you on there. Anyway, today I'm joined by Jacob Hennessy. Jacob burst onto the world cycling scene with a spectacular win in Ghent-Wevelgem in 2017. His journey to winning that race is utterly remarkable, and his rollercoaster journey as a pro since then just highlights what a mad world pro cycling is. He's faced crossroads in his career already on a couple of occasions, but he still has ambitions and the belief that he can be successful on the biggest stage. At just 23 years old, he has seen and experienced a tremendous amount. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I very much look forward to following his journey from here on in. But anyway, without further ado, let me bring you Jacob. Jacob, thanks for joining us. How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Have you been surviving the last 14 weeks? How have you been surviving? Where are you?
I'm in Rutland at the minute, so UK bound. But currently it's not been too bad for me. I suppose I get kind of used to living at home and not really seeing too many people being a cyclist anyway. So the only difference is that I'm not allowed to travel, which sucks a bit, but oh well.
A pain, yeah, and obviously no racing as well. It must be quite difficult to plan your weekly training, given that you're not sure what you're training for.
Yeah, the weekly training just now is just ride your bike, just get out and go for a bike ride. It's not so much like, all right, you need to do this many efforts. I'm just kind of going off riding my bike and trying to enjoy it a little bit, because you can only do that if you're riding on your own. Like I can't ride in groups, and I can't go off and do like fun intervals with other people, so it's more a case of just ride my bikes and just find some enjoyment in that, I suppose.
It must be quite refreshing to be able to do that rather than sort of having to do intervals the whole time and being structured and being on the road as well. But then again, you're probably itching to get racing.
Yeah, no, I'm less motivated to just ream myself for 20 hours a week, if I'm honest. I'm less motivated to just go off and smash out massive weeks training. I'm more motivated by the fact, like, there is a race coming up, so let's get in the best shape possible for that. And like for me, actually just going off and smashing myself to pieces. I know I've seen so many people now that have got time off work and they're riding huge weeks and banging in these hours, and they're like, oh, this is brilliant. And I'm like, yeah, but I do it as a job. It's slightly different. It's like, I actually like the thing that gets me excited to go off and train is the fact, like, I'm getting ready for this race and I'm going to be going well. I'm just competitive, I suppose.
Yeah, I can see that. And how have the team been? I mean, it must be quite difficult for them. Have they been sort of giving you whatever updates they're getting, or what is the latest status?
Well, the team itself is Tim Elverson, our DS. He pretty much runs the show, and he's got his own businesses and stuff like that running at the same time. So we've kind of been in a bit of a weird situation where we've been put on hold, and I mean, we're kind of being as understanding as we can be, because he has got other things going on and he's got to worry about himself and his family as well. So it's kind of been a bit of white noise and nothing really going on. But we keep just looking at updates and just praying that something's coming up to get back to racing, really.
Yeah, it's a bit of a holding pattern, I suppose, which is quite disconcerting.
Yeah, it's for not knowing. That's the problem. Problem.
Should we go back a bit? So obviously you and I first caught up, I think 2018, and you just come back from Tour of Langkawi. But let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into racing bikes? What age did you suddenly figure out that you're pretty good at it? And talk us through your race background.
Yeah. No, that was in Hong Kong, wasn't it? So I started racing bikes when I was I would have been 18 at the time, 18 or 19. Can't remember. It kind of blurs into one, but I started
pretty late.
Yeah, I started quite late. I worked. I had a few jobs, and I worked. One of my jobs, I worked at a garden centre, and one of my jobs, I worked at a local bike shop because I was into like jump bikes and BMXing and things like that. Coming from a motocross background, and I I was into that sort of style and the mountain bikes and stuff. Wasn't really into road biking. But anyway, I was working at this bike shop and the garden centre, and I rode to the garden centre on my BMX, got a puncture, and the guy traded me for my wage for the day. He traded me this old rusty steel road bike that he had because I basically needed to get home. So he was like, "Oh, here, have this. It's just hanging up in the garage." I pumped the tyres up, rode it home, and then I used to ride that to and from my jobs instead of driving because I didn't really like it. I didn't really like driving. I just would rather ride my bike. And then, one thing led to another. I overtook this guy who lived in the village. I overtook him on the way back from work, and I overtook him with a Nike string bag, a pair of running shoes, and a beanie hat, and gone bombing it past him, and he's like in full lycra and stuff like that. And then he got talking, and he was like, "Oh, you should come out with the local cycling club and stuff like that." And I was kind of not really stoked about it, but I went off and did the club run with them. But I went off after a massive night out, no breakfast, and just didn't really know anything about cycling because like the furthest I'd ridden was like to work and maybe a loop after work, so probably 10 miles. And I did like 60 miles with them in the morning, hungover, no water, no food, and I just blew. And I just remember like them all laughing and stuff, and they just said, you need to like do this, and I did it the next week, and I just wiped the floor with them, and I did it on like a crappy bike with no clip-in pedals. And then after that, they were like helping me learn like the little bits of etiquette, like the local club was. And then one day they were just like, it wasn't even that long. It was like a month or two after I'd did my first ever ride, which at the point I was still going out like 3 times a week because I was working, so I was earning reasonable money, and I was a teenager. So, and then I did this. They said there's a local bike race coming up, so come off and do this race with us. And I was like, yeah, sure. And they lent me some kit and stuff like that. And I went off and did the race, and I won. And then the next weekend there was another race, and I won that as well. And that was the St. Neots race. So that was the big one to win at the time. And then after that,
and had you got clip-ins by now? You still
I was clipped in. I was clipped in by then because I spoke to the bike shop. I basically said to the bike shop at that I was working at, Rutland Water, and I just said to him, I was like, I'm doing a bike race. And all the guys then, no one was into cycling, road cycling. They were all mountain bikers and jump bikers and stuff like that. So when I said like, oh guys, do you know anything about clip-in shoes? It was just like, no, none of us know anything about clip-in shoes. Like, these look quite good. We'll do them for you at cost. So that was basically how we did most of my kit purchasing.
So that's a mad story. So given the sort of day and age where of modern professional sport, you seem to see people go into it at sort of age 8 or something, and they've been sort of trained into their life by the time they're 19.
Yeah.
Did you play sport growing up, or
no,
what?
I was always sporty. I used to because I've raced motocross. That was I wanted to be a pro motocross racer. That's all I ever wanted to do, and I did that from my first motorbike when I was 4, and I raced until I was 16, 17. Won a few championships, won a lot of races, raced the nationals and stuff like that. But like I was good, but in motocross you kind of need that. You just need a bit more money to be able to go off, and a lot of these kids were homeschooled that I was racing. So I was doing good, but I wasn't doing amazing. Basically, I think I reckon if I'd stuck at it, I could have made pro, but I reckon I would have been a national crappy pro or like at a low level. I don't think I would have been winning, and I don't think I'd have been amazingly good. But basically, we run out of money because it's just one of those sports.
Yeah.
I've spoken to a lot of people who do go-karting, and they seem to say the same thing. But it's
similar thing. Yeah, I've definitely heard that. So that's kind of tough. But so obviously you love the speed of the motorbike, and I suppose from a core athletic perspective, it translates quite well to cycling.
Yeah, well, motocross is like 20 minutes. The races are around 15 to 20 minutes when you're a bit younger, but you're riding at probably an average. Your average heart rate's about the high 190s, because it's like, I don't know if you've ever used those ropes you get at the gym. The ones you just slam up and down.
Oh, with your arms. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of like that and doing jump squats, but for 20 minutes. And it's kind of like your whole body just gets knackered. So when I come into cycling, it wasn't like I was well out of my depth, because I did a little bit of running as well, because I like to keep fit.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I came in off of the back of nothing, but I mean, at the time I was 18, I was working at Titan Motorsport, this local motorsport company, earning pretty good money and just basically spending it all on alcohol at the weekends. And then, yeah, that was kind of where the crossover came.
So weird. So you had a pretty quick rise then, from sort of getting on the bike for the first time at 19. What year was that? Sort of 2016?
I think it was less than, it was just over a year. I went from never riding a bike with gears to the national team in just over a year.
So that's unbelievable.
I'd literally,
and when you went to the national team, so you obviously went to the national team, and your sort of colleagues that you're riding with there, they'd all been riding for years, I take it, or were there are there more of you?
No, that was it. They'd all been riding for forever, and they all knew each other as well. So I was not well welcomed at the start, but I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Kind of,
I think it's
who's this new guy who's just picked up a bike, and a bit the new threatening guy.
Yeah, I suppose I wasn't really that. I mean, cycling's a bit of a weird one, to be honest. Like, it's a bit of everyone's very guarded and insecure and stuff like that. Not that these guys were, but it's just that sort of like mentality. Whereas like motocross and that sort of background is very like, I'm trying to think of a way of saying it, but it's like everyone urges each other to do stupid stuff, and it's like no one takes it too seriously. And I think it was just a bit of a weird shock to the system when I went there, and everyone's, been doing it and been saying, like, their parents have been telling them they're going to be the best since they were like 8 years old. Whereas my dad's daring me to do stupid stuff. Like, it's not really the same mentality. So it took a little bit of time to get my head around. But after, I just sort of like, when I joined the national team, I had my head down, because it was like, well, if you're going to do it, you got to work hard. So I just put my head down, headphones in, and just got the riding done. And that was about it, really.
Just got it done. Yeah. Just what an opportunity you had, right? You've gone from sort of riding with people, I'm sure at 19 were having, super healthy diets, and you were out on the smash.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. It went from a really, so when I started cycling, I then not long after joined that motorsport company, and the guy who became managing director of that company that I was working for, I had fixed his bike 2 weeks prior to me joining on my last day at Grapham, the Rutland store. And I built his bike, and then he turned up at that work and was going around introducing himself, saying, I'm the new managing director. And he come over to me, and I just like looked at him, and I'm like, where do I know you from? And then it was like, oh, I built your bike like 2 weeks ago. Anyway, and then after that we bonded, and he was like getting me more amped up for cycling, because we were just like talking about it all the time. And then he weirdly he was the one after my first, basically he was the one who then put me in touch with someone who said like that I might actually be okay, and kind of got me on the right path. So it was all like really weird coincidence type thing.
Yeah.
Just like right place, right time consistently for a good amount of time, really.
Yeah, it's amazing. And a slight tangent. I mean, given your sort of entrance into the sport, and given how, as I mentioned, kids are getting into it and very serious earlier and earlier, do you think there are other people with similar talent and ability that sort of slip through the net out there?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of people that maybe don't get the right guidance that I got when I first started, and then never maybe take it quite serious enough. And then there's also a lot of people who have been, like you say, brought up with it, and it's all they know. And there's so much like, I can't remember what my dad used to call it, like it's basically like aggressive parenting, where they just like
tiger parenting,
do it, and they're just like forcing you to do it. And like I feel there's so many people that end up just doing it too much, and they kind of just lose the reason for doing it. So ever when there's like some hardship, they can't really like fall back on it. It's just that all they know, and they kind of just lose the love. You see it around the under 23s. There's so many people that just like peter out of not wanting to do it anymore.
And that's what I mean. Do you think that, your diversity of background has stood you in good, I mean, you're only 23 still, right? So it's still early in your career, but it stood you in good stead in terms of just being able to handle difficult situations, or a little bit better compared to some others?
I mean, it's not the only thing that I like doing. So it's like, I mean, I love cycling, and it is like basically my entire life. But at the same time, you know, I've done a lot of other cool stuff before that I'm kind of glad that I did, because otherwise now I don't have the opportunity. So, for instance, doing this lockdown thing, I got to ride a motorbike for the first time in 5 years. I got to ride one.
Yeah, very cool.
And like, I got to ride one the other day, and I was just like, this is awesome. But like, it didn't even cross my mind that it was weird, because I just got on and was like, straight away it felt normal. So
Back on the horse. Yeah, I did see that on Instagram. We'll put your Instagram link in the show notes for people to check that out.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. That's good. And I suppose it goes like, I suppose there's a sort of bit of a debate with regard, you know, that Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule to, you know, just cycling and doing all that. A new sort of theory is David Epstein says that range is really important. So actually, you know, look at the Roger Federer as an example, that he grew up with non-pushy parents, and he played football and he played handball and he played tennis and he played a number of different sports, and a lot of people attribute his genius to the fact that he had that range of diversity of background, and he wasn't sort of pushed down one specific channel from a very early age.
Exactly. Well, this is the thing that you get, because you can only push your kids so much, but then they have to decide to do it, and the only time you're ever going to get the best out of yourself is if you're doing it. It's like if someone tells you something and it's an amazing idea, like, it's not as good as if you come up with that exact same idea. Like, it just takes a bit of time to come round. And like, I think like someone like that, he's not training to be the best tennis player in the world when he's a kid. He's training to be the best athlete. And I think I take that a lot, because with I used to think it when I used to do a bit of running, what it comes down to at the end of the day is when you're both hurting, it's like, who's the better athlete? Who can hold their breath longer in that final sprint and really like hurt themselves and that sort of thing. And I kind of feel like that with cycling a lot. Like, it feels like you're getting your head pushed underwater, but it's like, who can hold their head under longest and who's going to like suffer the most. And you can only do it, I think, if you have made the decision yourself rather than someone else telling
intrinsic
you
motivation. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, and that was it. And actually, I listened to an interesting podcast where they looked at that, the Gladwell thing, and they said, no, Tiger Woods, basically, he's that perfect example of, he's just played golf from age 2 and he's excelled. But the difference being, his motivation came from within. That's what he wanted to do. Like, he loved golf and that was his thing, so he was okay doing that. But if you're pushed to do it and that's all you do, and actually it's your parents who are wanting you to do it and you're not necessarily that driven by it, it will never work.
No, exactly.
No matter how many hours you put.
Yeah, exactly. You can put 10,000 hours, but if you're only putting 10,000 half-assed hours in, or something that someone's forcing you to do it or pushing you from behind, it doesn't really work. You've got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I noticed it a lot, because when I started cycling, it was like, well, no one in my family. Like, I remember the first time I shaved my legs, and my dad just took the piss out of me for about 3 weeks, like non-stop. And he still does now. Like, this is the thing. Like, no one in my family understood it at all. So when I went out and I spent my wage, one week, and I bought a set of carbon wheels, and that caused a massive argument in our house, because it was just like, why would you buy them? And I'm like, who are they designed for? They're literally designed for me. Like, I'm good at this. Come on, trust me. And I just remember, like, my parents were not exactly supportive of cycling because they didn't understand it. But because I'm a bit, I don't know, it's a bit rebellious. I don't know. It's hardly because it's cycling, but it's more like I just wanted to do it, and that's what I was doing, and I decided, so no one could tell me anything otherwise.
Yeah,
just pig-headedness, I think.
Well, no, you got to be focused and determined, right, to want to put the work in. But
exactly.
So you within a year you've been picked up by the national squad. How did you end up joining Mitchelton Bike Exchange? How did that come about?
So I joined the national team. I'd done my year there, done really well, and there was some talks with a few teams. There was a lot of, so I had a few agents getting in touch with me because it had just gone from like zero to hero, and I'd started doing all right. And then,
did you win Ghent before? When did you win again? What year was that?
I won Wevelgem when I was with GB. Yeah. So
that
was my first. That was my. Oh no, actually, it wasn't my first UCI race. I think it was one of my second. Might have been my second UCI race. I just raced. I did. Yeah, that was the first proper race of the year. And I remember the coach at the time telling me, he was like, right, It's Keith Lambert, this Yorkshire lad, and he was like, right, if you get stuck on the left, you're knackered, so go on the right. So I was like focused and like nailed it on the right hand side at the sprint. And
Brilliant.
like I remember crossing the line, and he was like, yeah, I've never seen him so happy. But yeah, no.
Oh, amazing! That must have been an amazing feeling.
Yeah, very, very strange, very surreal. But
Yeah,
I didn't really know what to do or how to, because it was like I genuinely was like, my goal for the day was to try and finish. So it was like, right, okay, well, let's just finish this one and see where you go. Because Keith, the coach at the time, kept saying to me, he was like, yeah, you'll be there at the end. You'll be there at the end. And the thing is, I'd only ever done 2 races in Belgium, and they were that week. So I did a race on the Sunday, a race on the Wednesday, and then a race on the other Sunday. So Wevelgem was the 3rd race I did. I'd never raced in Belgium. So it was just, everything was like light speed. Like I just couldn't believe how quick everyone rode.
really, yeah.
And like my first race, I think I come 8th. And I was like, at the end of it, I was like, oh, that's not bad. Like, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
And then the second race I won. And I was like, all right, okay, I've got the hang of racing in Belgium. And then that's why he was saying, trust me, you'll do well. But I was still really skeptical. I was like, yeah, all right, let's just finish first. And yeah, I couldn't believe
Amazing.
it.
Was that a big moment career-wise? Obviously, massive win, huge win. But did the phone start ringing then? That's when teams came in. What?
Yeah,
How did that change things for you?
pretty much immediately, really. Because
Really?
I finished that race, and there was people like pestering me from the finish of the race. And like, there was a person, one of the teams offered to pay me out of the contract with GB to go and ride the rest of the season with them.
Oh, wow.
And I won't say who it was, but I just remember, because it was at the time, it was like an agency and this, and I was just like, I'm not interested. But at the time, it just kind of took me away, like how big it was, because I didn't know. The worst bit about it is I didn't really know anything about the race.
Of course, because you didn't grow up as like a cycling fan watching all the races. You probably never heard of it.
My goal that year was to win Flanders, which was the next weekend. So I just happened to be, or like a couple of weeks after. So I just happened to be in good shape for that one. It wasn't a target at all. I just ended up being in the right place, right? And I just ended up doing well. So then after that, I did ZLM as well, which I made the move and split the race with Lawless and rode the front for the last like 8K of the race, because Lawless had basically said that he wanted to win. And I was like, well, I mean, I didn't really know anything at the time. So I was like, yeah, sure. All right. Okay. Let's try and win it. And then third wheel crashed as we went round a corner. So it was just me and him. So then it was like, right, nail it as hard as I can for a couple 100 meters. Then Chris took over and he went off and won. And it was
the rest is history.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that season, that's when you ended up joining the Mitchelton guys, right? After that year.
Yeah. So after that year, so basically the coach at the time, Brian Stevens, was he was also, because he was really well connected with the guys at Cycling Australia and James Victor, who was the actual guy running the Mitchelton team at the time.
Okay.
They'd been friends for ages, and basically Brian had spoken to James and said, listen, I've got a kid and he's pretty good. What do you think? And James had known me and that from a few of the races in the year where I'd beaten a few of his guys. Okay. So he knew me anyway. I can't really remember how it properly came about. My agent, Gary, I think was the final person to kind of come in and just seal everything off, because there was a lot of people saying like, and talking here and there and kind of, yeah, we'd love to do this. We want to do this. We want to do this. And then I think Gary was the person to actually come in and say, right, here you go, sign this and you're good to go. So
and you're done.
Yeah.
And how was that year? You spent a lot of time traveling that year, didn't you? You did Langkawi and you did a lot of time in China as well. How did you find it? And because you had I think Robert Stannard was racing then as well, wasn't he? In that
we had an amazing team. Well, like, to be honest, it was still one of the best. Like, I mean, results wise, it wasn't, but as an experience, it was probably the best year of my life, because we just amount the stuff you see. Like, even I met you in Hong Kong, and like when I went there, I was still a bit like kind of, I don't know, everything was happening so quick. I couldn't really experience anything. I was just like, finally sat down at the end of the year, and I was like, wow, that was a cool year.
I believe that happened. Oh, even when we met you, we were up the top of a skyscraper, weren't we? Like
We're in
amazing
a
views over Hong Kong.
center of Hong Kong eating sea cucumber for dinner and like
Yeah,
random stuff like that. And I was just like, this is the most bizarre experience. And like even looking back now, it still doesn't quite feel real. It kind of like, we drove through the center of Hong Kong to do a photo shoot, and the bus driver was going for a piss in a bucket next to us. And you're just like, we got there and we're like, this is literally the weirdest thing to ever happen. Like, especially because I wasn't used to cycling at all. So, but the guys that I met, they were like, they're Australians, so they're a lot more relaxed.
yeah.
And I absolutely loved it. Results wise, it wasn't as good as I'd hoped it would be, because actually when I really hit my stride and was flying and stuff like that, I then had another crash and got injured again. And it was just a bit of it is what it is, really.
But a good year.
But as far as experience goes, that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think travel gives you so much, right? Just to see different things. And I laugh when you mention the bus driver taking a piss, because I've obviously spent 10 years in Asia and nothing surprises you. You see it everywhere you go, you see all sorts
Exactly.
of stuff. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. And actually, I think you just done Langkawi when I saw you, right? And wasn't it like unbelievably hot that year? I mean, it's always hot during the tour of Langkawi, but I think that year particularly was ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember because I went there and I'd never met Sweeney before, and Harry Sweeney, and I'd never met him before, and he'd just come from Australia, and I'd just come from an English winter. So we met up at the first time in Langkawi, and I was creeping the whole week. I just could not cool down. Like, we're talking 30 plus degrees at night with no conditioning, like air conditioning.
Yeah.
And
ridiculous humidity as well. It's like 90%
90% humidity, 40 plus degrees during the day. And like, you're just banging through like 10, 12 bottles in a race. And then you've got to get up and do it the next day. And I just remember I got to Hong Kong at the end, and like, it was still reasonably hot there, like humid.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Still reasonably humid there. But I got there and I was like, wow, this is cold. Like, this is freezing now compared to 45 degrees and 90%. So yeah, no, that was weird though, because like you say, we'd just got to Hong Kong from Langkawi, which was not my first stage race, but it was like one of the longer races that I'd done. And
it's quite a tough race actually, Langkawi, isn't it?
It's really hard. Really
good riders there as well, yeah.
Yeah, it was just insanely hard. Especially, I think it was mainly the heat as well. Like, a few of the Aussies do well there, and also a lot of the Malaysian riders. I think there's a team, Terengganu. They do really well there because they're used to that heat. So for them, it wasn't so big a change. But for me, it took me the first 5-6 days of the race to even just sort myself out and catch up a bit.
Really. And you went a race up very high in China as well, didn't you? What?
Yeah, Qinghai Lake. Again, I'm going to go there when I'm old and fat and stop cycling. I'm going to take some time and go there and actually just look around, because as far as places to go, that
insane, right?
Is just insane. Like, it's so strange. You're at 4,500 meters up in the air, and like, you're not the highest point. You're just you're just a bump. Like, we did one climb and it's 3,900 meters elevation at the top. And as I got to the top of it, I look around and we're like one of the lowest climbs. And I was like, what is this? Like, it just seems like it's like Land of the Lost type thing. Like, everything's way bigger than...
If anyone's interested and hasn't listened to the podcast I did with Shannon Buffton, Shannon runs Cirque Cycling, which is sort of frontier cycling in China and Kyrgyzstan and even North Korea. That's definitely an episode worth checking out. And he was the guy that pioneered Everest.
Right.
There's a road that goes all the way up to Everest Base Camp, but it's an amazing place. And did you race that high as well? What was it like racing at that altitude?
We'd just done. So I did the baby Giro, the under 23 Giro d'Italia. I finished that. I had a week with my girlfriend, now fiance, in like sunny Spain, and we were just like living the dream there. Like, a week of just riding in stupidly hot weather, but she was a pro at the time as well. And it was just like quite a nice week to chill out. And then I went straight from there to 2.5 weeks in Livigno, riding up Stelvio and proper altitude training. First time ever doing that. And then we went from there to Qinghai, which was even higher, and total I was there for 23 days, because I think we were there 10 days before the race to get used to it or something like that. And by the time I got back, it was like breathing in syrup when you got back and just normal oxygen. Like I basically had gills at the end of it.
That's wicked. So a year after you joined your current team, didn't you?
Yeah. So the year after. So basically we got told, this is the weird thing, because I still kind of, I don't hold it over them, but I never actually got told I didn't have a ride.
With Mitchelton?
I never got told anything. I just got told what other people knew of. This is the worst thing. So I only ever got told that the team wasn't happening from one of the guys who'd just signed Caden. He was saying at the time, he was like, "Oh, the team's not happening next year." And I was like, "Oh, all right, fair enough. What do we do then?"
I didn't realise that had happened.
I didn't. So I never actually.
They disbanded the development team, did they?
Yeah, so they went full. They had only Chinese riders because they wanted it to be a pure Chinese development team.
Yeah,
which was but I understand it and I get why. It just was really strange at the time because I didn't
badly communicated. I think given everything that we've seen in the press in the last week, I think that certainly the day I met you was an insight into just how difficult finding sponsorship is for teams. And I think obviously Green Edge has been well documented in the last week, everything that's happened with the Spanish charity. I think I don't know if it had something to do with it, but I know that they're looking for Chinese sort of backing, weren't they, at the time?
Yeah, so I don't know what ever happened to that. I think that I don't actually know if the team's still going. I know that they did some racing in the last year or so, but I haven't seen or heard anything from them. It'd be a shame if they have stopped, because it was such a brilliant little setup.
Yeah.
When it had the Aussies on it, it was like the ideal setup because they can race in Europe, they can race in Asia, and it's kind of like a win-win.
Yeah.
But I remember I messaged one of the riders on Mitchelton when what was their new sponsor? Fondazione something.
For 14 days, I can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
When basically I messaged him when I saw the kit. And I was like, "Oh, that'll look good, mate," and with like a bit of joking, and then messaged him back like 5 days later, going, "Never mind." Yeah,
it's a strange situation. What's your take on it?
I think the thing is with cycling, it's such a careful balancing act between the team being the best they've ever been and like completely written off, and money does play a big part in it, but it's so easy to lose everything.
I mean, from an outsider perspective, it seems, and this is certainly not a criticism because it's such a difficult thing, but for a sport where the focus on performance is so scientific and so sophisticated, and then obviously they have these sort of media images of what these teams are like. For me to see a little bit behind the scenes, my day job is within financial services, and I just remember being quite shocked at just how ramshackle's the wrong word, but it's you're right. Obviously, just going from year to year trying to find sponsorship is so tough, right?
It just seems like, because I didn't know anything about it really coming into it. I had no idea the only things I knew of at the time was, sort of like Bradley Wiggins, Lance Armstrong, and these people that are earning massive money and they've got the best teams. And I kind of come into the sport and it's just nothing like that. It really is nothing like that. You got the very small percent that is, but like you say, it just seems so strange that they're putting all this money behind athlete well-being, yet you give them a year's contract and, you don't let them sign until right at the end of the year. So you have this like horribly stressful end to every season where it's just a running race to see who can get on which team. And basically I was lucky.
Or not even communicated to you.
Or not even communicate, exactly. Or not even communicate. But the thing is, because I just knew of things that were happening. And it was weirdly one of the DSs at Mitchelton, who was a very like loose helper anyway. Like not a loose helper, but he was like, he wasn't really in that main businessy clique. He was just someone they brought in, was like really bloody good. And I just remember like him saying about it, and just being like, mate, just get yourself another ride just in case.
Keep an eye on.
And he was
I mean,
just
that must
like,
have been
looking
so
up.
hard for you. That must have been so difficult. I mean, it's I don't mean to say it's okay for you, but obviously you've come through a different path. You've had jobs. You're probably a little bit more savvy than a lot of riders would have been at your age. I mean, how did other riders? I mean, did it stop people progressing? Did people sort of stop racing?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
that's
So
really
many
tough
people,
to
so
deal
many
with.
people were folding, and like people were just stopping riding really because like there's no. I nearly did at the time. That was it. That was me nearly done.
Really?
So I was lucky. I saved 80% of my wage from that year because
Yeah.
that's what I'd always been taught, and I just saved everything I could. And then the team folded, and I was trying to find a team, could not find anyone that would just take me, basically.
But why was that, given the
Yeah,
success that you'd have, the
like
reputation that you were building?
honestly, I have
Your
no idea. I have no idea. That was a pretty dark time because I was kind of a bit, because even that year I'd got a couple. I'd still got quite a few point HC race podiums,
Yeah.
and like I'd still been doing reasonably well. And like you go to it's a lot of it's word of mouth, but we'd go to these under 23 races and like, people would actually be coming up to me, bearing in mind I knew nothing about the sport, but people would be coming up to me and asking like what the plan is for the day. And this is other teams as well coming up to me because like I was just the motor that would push the bunch along in a lot of the races for that reason. So they'd be coming up saying, what are we doing? What's this? And like, I felt a bit hurt that when I got to the end of the season that no one would take me on. But then I knew Tim Elverson used to race motocross back in the day. We vaguely knew of each other when I was like just starting out.
Yeah.
And I think I got in touch. I got his number. I just called him up one day and I was like, what are you doing next year? And he was like, I've just seen about my team. He was like, you can come race for us, but I can't pay you.
Wow.
So, and like at the time I was like, I'm not interested because like I've got to earn money. I got a girlfriend. I got, like I'm not getting any younger and I can't just not earn anything.
Well, plus you've had results that warrants
Yeah.
getting paid. If you're going to get exposure for sponsors, and I think in a sport we talk about sort of people that have come all the way through, and you've got a personality, and there's a little bit more to you. I mean, do you think that's like a sponsorship stream?
You would think, but basically he just said, "Oh, listen, I can't pay you, mate. You can come ride for us. We'll give you a bike, and then we'll see what happens." So I just went off and rode for him, but there's a bit of a weird one because the winter for that year, I was kind of stressing that I wasn't going to be earning money, so I earned as much money as I could. Then I was doing a lot of labouring, a lot of like other bits and pieces here and there. So it was a really, really weird year. This year's been a lot better, but then again, I only got paid for a few months and then coronavirus kicked in. So it was a bit of a kick in the teeth again, but it's just how cycling goes. I
So
think
when you won Motherwell,
yeah.
you were sort of non-paid that year.
No, which is why I was doing so well at the crits because I could only train shorter durations because I was working as well. So it was a bit of a weird one.
From an outsider, that seems totally insane. And if no one's seen the footage of you winning that sprint, it's quite good. You must be proud of that one. That's quite a good little.
I like it.
Coming up.
They asked me for the
1600
numbers.
watts or whatever.
Yeah, they asked me for the power data for Wahoo, and I looked through it and I was like, fingers crossed. I was like, I hope I didn't look like a wuss. Like, I hope I didn't. Yeah. I hope I wasn't sprinting. Then I looked at the numbers and I was like, all right, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I can send them that. So
that's a good one. Yeah.
No,
I'm gonna pop that in the show notes as well because that is 1600 watts and a hell of a finish as well. So that's a good one. So okay, so obviously this season started better and then coronavirus has hit. What's the plan?
So this year I went because of last year, because not getting paid and stuff like that, and like we were renting a place as well. I basically went for all my savings. I did an absolute ton of work when I got injured towards the end of last year, and I just did loads of work, as much as I could get my hands on.
Yeah. Got
as much money as I could, and then in October time, I started training like flat out. November, I did my first camp. I did 3 weeks in December. I basically I got to January and I had like £6 in my bank account. And I literally had no savings left. I had £6 in my bank account and like 80 cent from my Euro account from racing with Mitchelton, because I just spent all of my money on training camps.
Wow.
And I put myself in the best possible position to do well. And then, just one thing led to another. And then this is where we're at now, really. So it's kind of a bit of a kick in the teeth, but at least I don't regret not trying my best for this year. Because it is what it is, really.
Well, and we could still get some races towards the end of the year, do we think? Or what's your sort of general?
Yeah, again, because the problem was I then so I got paid for first 3 months of this year, and then the team, obviously all the sponsors are withholding money because that's how teams work. Sponsors are withholding money because they don't know if they're going to stay afloat. So the team doesn't get paid, meaning the riders don't get paid. So I haven't been, I've not been paid for the last 4 months. And because I was only self-employed as of January this year, I don't get any universal credit or nothing. So it's basically all battle stations, straight up hustle as much money as I can at the minute, and then see where I stand when racing comes back round. The racing is so secondary at the minute because I got a fiance now.
Congratulations. When did you propose?
Last year. I just said to her, I was like, I haven't got any money, but I will have. So, will you marry me? Basically, something along those lines. And
you old romantic, you.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, well, she stuck with me when I had absolutely nothing, so we'll be all right. So, yeah, no, I've been very lucky. And then this year, it was going to be kind of the year to come back up, and both of us were doing well at the start of the year. And she works in events herself.
Sorry, say that again. She works in events?
Events, like doing videography and stuff like that for all these big cycling companies. So,
wicked.
But then because no one's doing anything, she can't work. So we're in a bit of a... We've basically just been hustling, and I've been looking for labouring jobs. She's been looking for cleaning jobs. It's very, very strange.
Oh, mate. Well, if there's anyone listening, anyone that wants to provide you with some corporate sponsorship,
if anyone has any cleaning or labouring work, let me know.
Even labour or any. I mean, there must be cycling people listening to this, right? There must be some form of promotions or something that you can do, given A, your clear talent, and B, your knowledge, and C, your background. So yeah, it's a shout out to anyone if you're listening, for sure.
Shout out,
yeah, good.
Yeah,
good. Well, it's pretty tough. So moving on to 2021, it's kind of a bit of an unknown for you at the moment, or a bit of a question mark.
It's a big question mark at the minute. It really. I'm definitely going to be racing. It just depends what capacity, because I can't afford to not get paid and take it. The problem is as well, it's quite a full-on job. It's 7 days a week. You don't have any downtime. There's no weekends, because your off days or your rest days might be during the week. So you don't really hang out with anyone else.
No.
But obviously, with the racing being as serious as it is and so global, we race all over the place. Like I said before, when we're in China and stuff, we're literally all over the place. So for me, it's a weird one, because I'd like to earn money, but a lot of jobs don't really like you swanning off for 5 days out of the week. So it's just try and see where I stand at the end of this season, see what the deal is. I'm going to try and do a little bit of mountain bike racing as well, because I've never done that, which is a really weird thing to never have done, seeing as I come from motocross.
Give that a crack. You would be awesome at that.
No, that's the thing. I've done the crits, and I'm quite good at the crits, and I've never done a mountain bike race, and it just seems bizarre that I've managed to be cycling this long and never done it. So I'm going to do a bit of that, but the plan is to continue with the road, hopefully stay with the same team so long as everything's all good with us. And hopefully we're okay after all of this is done, basically. That's the main thing. As long as the team's okay. But like I said before, Tim's got his own problems to worry about. So I'm not really putting too much pressure on him, because it's not his fault.
No, of course, it's no one's fault, and everyone's going through challenges at the moment. It's difficult for everyone, and it's just so interesting to hear that, there's no one that hasn't been affected in some way or
No,
another.
exactly. It's
And
just a knife edge, isn't it?
ultimately, longer term goal. I mean, do you see yourself trying to get back to get into World Tour race at that level? Do you think that's on the achievable?
Yeah, so literally before, when I was at Mitchelton, I
Yeah,
had the guy from Lotto Jumbo contact me the week before ZLM, and they were coming to watch me race there. And then I crashed and broke my collarbone with about 250 meters to go.
no,
And literally every single time it seems to happen, because before there was a stagiaire opportunity with Sky, and then I got smashed
yeah,
into in Manchester, and I got run over in Manchester and smashed my face in, so I couldn't do that. It just seems to be like it was at the start of cycling, right place, right time, and then the last couple of years have been wrong place, wrong time, just deck it and get hit by cars and stuff. But I think definitely on the cards, I'd love to do it.
yeah,
Otherwise, I wouldn't still be doing it. Because for me, I have to. For me, it's better. I only want to race that top level. Like I'm not super motivated to do the running round and just doing random races in Belgium. I want to race Roubaix. I want to do Worlds, that sort of thing. So does everyone, I suppose.
awesome. Yeah, but I mean, there's no reason why you can't, right? You've won it. You've won big races at under 23. You're still 23, are you right? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Still 23. Still 23.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exciting, and that's the kind of rider you would obviously you've done super well in the crits recently. You're talking about mountain biking, but you see yourself as a sort of gritty one day specialist.
Yeah, well, when I went to GB, I think the coach said it best when I first went there. Brian, someone had gone over and asked for an interview and said, like, what do you reckon to Jacob? Like, he's a pretty good sprinter. And Brian was like, I don't think he's a sprinter. I reckon he's just someone that will get there at the end of a hard day and be able to sprint, which I think is probably more accurate because, like, I can sprint and I'm a pretty good sprinter, but a lot more comfortable in those situations where it's been like 5 hours on the pedals and everyone's
Yeah,
tired and everyone's tired, whereas some of the sprints is just chaos.
yeah,
And yeah, I don't think I've raced long enough to be really quick at those sort of things. But I think
yeah.
I'm getting there.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think everyone really missed those sort of spring classics this year. They kind of punctuate the year for you, don't you? I don't
Yeah,
know about you,
that's
but
me.
I
That's
love them so much.
100%. That's the first bike race. The first bike race I spoke to him actually this year. I had a proper fangirl moment. I went over and I first ever bike race I watched was Nicky Terpstra winning Paris-Roubaix in 2014, and
Oh wow, yeah.
I never watched the Tour when Wigo won it. I never watched it.
No.
So
Oh no, yeah,
I wasn't.
yeah, of
I
course.
literally didn't know cycling was. It sounds stupid saying it now, but I didn't know cycling was a sport. Like I knew of Lance Armstrong, but I didn't really care because I wasn't. I didn't even like because of motocross. I didn't even look it up as a sport.
Yeah.
And like I just
You're
remember.
making me feel old, by the way, Jacob. I was married by the time Wigo won the Tour.
Yeah, exactly. I genuinely, I never even knew it was. And then I after that, like now I watch the videos back and I've been watching them back and back because I got into it. And then now I kind of like understand the history of it. But the first race I watched was Terpstra winning Roubaix because when I was still working part time in the bike shop,
Yeah,
they had that on TV when I was
yeah,
there. They just had it on TV, and I was sat there like there wasn't a lot going on, so we were sat there watching it, kind of like on and off. And I remember watching him finish and just seeing like how emotional he was at finishing. And I was like,
yeah,
"What are
amazing.
you doing? Come on, pull yourself together!" Like, and he's like crying and proper happy at the end. And I was like, just didn't really. Yeah, that was the first time I ever sort of fell in love with cycling. So that was the race.
And you say you missed him. Actually, we should probably wish him all the best because he's had a bit of a crash this week, isn't he? He's been in hospital. I think he's just come out today. So,
Terpstra.
yeah. So speedy recovery to him. But you mentioned you had a fanboy moment. Got to meet him.
Yeah, I met him. So I was in Le Samen this year with him, and
Okay.
the race was just absolute chaos. Like here, there, and everywhere. And every time I put a bottle in my bike, it just fell out, and I was just like basically blew. And he wasn't on a good day. So basically, we were in like the second or third group on the road, and I remember coming across the line, and I just like rode up alongside him, like pushing everyone out of the way, and I was just like basically told him like, literally the first ever bike race, and the reason I got into cycling was because of him.
Yeah.
And like, because he was the first classics rider that I'd ever knew of or seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went over and just like said hi and just kind of introduced myself, and he was like, yeah, whatever, mate. Kind of brush.
Oh, really?
Well, he just kind of like, I don't know. I suppose it's just the same with anything, because like obviously it's dead awkward for him because he doesn't know who I am, but I know everything about him.
Yeah.
So I know everything that he's done. I'm like, oh, how was that holiday you took 3 years ago to Spain? And like, he just has no idea who I am. So yeah, but it was really, it was proper cool, because I never thought when I first started that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to race with those people that I was watching. And
Yeah.
even though I'm not doing
when you were at Ghent-Wevelgem, did you meet Matty Heyman when you were there? Obviously,
with Mitchelton.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did the October camp with the team, which is like where they just kind of get everyone together, introduce all the new riders that are coming. So like, I think when I joined, it was like Nieve was joining from Sky, so he was like introducing himself to the riders and kind of getting used to everyone and the staff. So I did that, and I met Matt Heyman briefly, but
that's one of my favourite wins, and that's kind of
epic.
You know, that whole just keep riding and the whole story. That's a brilliant backstage pass video. Actually, I love it.
He just kind of like he is that team. Like as a person, he is that everything that team stands for. Like just the kind of has a bit of a laugh, takes it pretty serious, but at the same time is just like a hard worker. And yeah, I absolutely, Now I watch, now the thing is, this is the thing, I now look back and I watch that even more now, and I'm like, oh, cool. Because I did a camp with all them guys, and it's kind of like cool to see them. Yeah, I don't know. It was really strange, like even just hanging out with them. Like the first time I met all of those guys, I remember meeting Chavez, and like, I just knew him as this big star, but he's like 5'0", and like, just like one of the most friendly people I've ever met. So yeah, very strange.
That's good to hear. It's nice to hear when you hear stories like that, because you never know what someone's media persona is like and what they're really like off the bike.
Because that backstage pass was probably the best thing that team had ever done, because it made everyone seem human, and like they are exactly how they come across on backstage pass, because you can't be fake with a camera in your face that much. You know, like they're getting constantly filmed, so they're eventually like going to show what they're actually like, and they're all just like genuinely really nice people. The staff are all super friendly as well. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked my time at that team.
It's interesting. We talked before we started recording just about where cycling's going. But what do you make of, I suppose, EF education and people doing sort of non-classic road races as well, the sort of big gravel races and Everesting, and just trying to develop, I suppose, I think Vorta's thing is developing or sort of promoting the personalities of the riders and creating people that people want to support and follow. And what's your take on that?
I think from having been in the industry for a while, I think it's a really smart marketing move, because it just appeals and gets the people fixed on that team.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of teams are doing it now. You know, like you've got Alpecin as well doing a lot of, you know, because of Van der Poel, he does mountain biking, he does road, he does everything. I think it definitely brings like a larger audience to cycling, which is what you want at the end of the day. And those people that they're getting forward to do that, like Lachlan Morton and stuff, they're not your typical road cyclists. So I think, like I say, again, it brings more people to the sport, which can only be a good thing. And if they've only ever seen one rider with one team, like my first one was Terpstra at Quickstep. So for me, that was like, oh, I'd love that team. I love that rider and all of that. Whereas if you've only ever seen Lachlan Morton doing cool stuff, you'll be like, oh, wow, I like that rider. That team is amazing. So for EF, it's ideal, really.
Yeah. And that's why I say, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, the road race results are always key, but almost what people are doing off the bike now and their personality and you know, some of the more relatable things that they're doing to the average Joe cyclist are becoming almost more valuable for the sponsors than sort of picking up particular results in like midweek races, say, for example. So
yeah, it's all social media, isn't it? It's all about what they're posting and like just trying to show off that they are human. But yeah, that's what cycling gets you nowadays. Because if you're, if you're joining it and doing it as a job, you ride your bike 7 days a week, but you have to let everyone know you're riding your bike 7 days a week as well. That's the problem. You have to constantly be posting. I see it all the time. You just see constant people posting photos of their Wahoo about, look at this amazing ride that I did. And it's like, it's just insane. It's non-stop now. You just get cycling content all the time because that's what people want.
Yeah.
I think eventually it's not far off. I reckon the cycling season's not far off. Have you ever watched Drive to Survive? The F1?
I haven't, no.
Oh, get on it. Netflix. Like, Drive to Survive is an F1 documentary. I reckon they're not far off doing something like that with most other sports, like cycling, because it made F1 more like than car racing. So it's like now I watch F1 and I watch the people racing for fourth and fifth rather than the person winning.
So fill me in if I haven't seen it.
It's just like it's basically like everything that happens behind the scenes. So like them with their sponsors, like the arguments within the team, the like developments throughout the year, like silly, they call it silly season, where they start all the drivers start changing between teams and making sure they've got a drive for next year, and like every race, it's like the emotions for each race. So it's like massive behind the scenes pass, really.
So it's basically full disclosure.
It's basically like everyone can hear everything that happens. Obviously, it's massively edited to like not let you know too much about any team, but it's like talking to that Claire Williams, like head of Williams, and she's just discussing about the fact that Mercedes are running a 600 million a year budget versus their 150, and like she's saying we can only employ this many staff, and it's just like it's kind of interesting. But I kind of
I think that'd be really, given what we just talked about earlier, just the surprise I had when I had a glimpse behind. I think that'd be an interesting thing to do with cycling, so people can appreciate just how many people come together to get involved, to get the athletes on the line and give you the full picture. But conversely, I spoke to a journalist on the podcast last week, and he said that he's felt that it's harder to get access to riders in more recent years because there's more press officers or people sort of stopping that access. So maybe that's something that
I think
cycling needs to think of, actually open the doors more, not shutting people out.
Yeah. I think also the issue with cycling is that you've got the conflict between social media and actual media attention, because if you post something on social media, someone from a magazine or something will find it. Like you said, you saw the videos on my Instagram the other day. Like, if I was posting me on a night out or something like that on my Instagram, which I'm allowed to do, I'm an adult, but if I posted that, it would be some magazine saying, oh, you're not taking your training seriously. And then that's, I think, why it makes people slightly more guarded. So it's that conflict between like having non-stop access and having like quality.
Well, because the knock-on effect. I mean, I don't want to get too into, but this whole cancel culture thing is quite scary, and the knock-on effect of that, as you said, that could stop someone getting a contract next year if they're
massively
irresponsible.
Well, it's all advertisement, so you got to make sure you're advertising the right person. You got to that person has to be like each rider, I suppose, is like a bit of an ambassador for the team. So you got to make sure that person is representing the team well. Otherwise, there's a lot more politics as well involved in cycling. I feel like that.
Yeah, let's not open that can of worms.
Definitely don't open that can of worms.
Awesome, mate. Look, I've taken up loads of your time, and I'd actually love to get you back on. I think there's lots of other things we could discuss, or even get yourself back on and some more guests and three of us have a chat. But thank you very, very much for taking the time to say hello.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly well. I mean, it's filled up my day and set my day off to a good start. So yeah, I'm all happy.
Yeah, but we've actually got a beautiful day after all the rain recently. I feel that you should be out riding. Are you going out this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm going to head out this afternoon. I've got a bit of work to do this morning, but then I'm going to head off later this afternoon, I think. So yeah.
Excellent. But please do come back and join us, and I hope racing opens up and everything is okay for you. And generally, if there is anyone out there listening that wants to get in contact with Jacob for any kind of ideas or initiatives or anything like that, please, can we get what can we do? Can we post your Instagram? Or
post my Instagram, post whatever you want, really, man. Like, I mean, we're setting up currently, me and my missus have set up a marketing company to basically create content. So yeah, if anyone's listening and they want any videos or...
And I think, can you just remind? I think I know who your fiance is. Could you just
Kira,
remind me? Sorry, say again.
Kira McVitie. So
and she has a
Ginger
famous Instagram handle, right?
Ginger Biscuit.
Yeah, okay, cool. I didn't actually realise that you guys were together. Okay, so we'll put her details in there. You're setting up a marketing company. That's pretty cool. When's that going live? How can we find it?
So it's called The Best Marketing, which is an SEO wet dream. But it's we are basically planning to go live within the next week or so. But we are currently working now. It's just... basically, we're just getting the website set up. But if anyone does need any video content or photo content or, brand guidelines, that sort of thing, that's kind of what we're doing currently. So, yeah.
We're all about. Fantastic. Excellent. Well, do get in touch. What we'll do is have you got a website yet for the new agency?
I'll tell you what, if possible, I'll put in my email address for it somewhere.
Yeah. Perfect. We'll get all that in there, and then maybe when you're up and running, we'll get both of you on the show to talk us through how it's going and how you're finding things.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Sounds good.
Excellent. You're all right, gentlemen, and thanks for the time, and we'll speak again very soon.
Lovely job. Right, speak soon. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast, and more importantly, don't forget to download the Unfound app and join cyclists from around the world on the Hub. We'll see you on there.